Welcome to the Endurance Studio podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Turner. I'm an avid ultra-endurance cyclist, bikepacker, and runner, and I'm on a journey to learn and share everything I can about how people can push beyond their limits. This podcast will explore all aspects of endurance through conversations with people I find unique and interesting. There's always an amazing story of accomplishment and failure, and always something to learn. I run this podcast from an off-grid mobile studio I've created so I can travel to the guests and have authentic, in-person conversations because I believe in the importance and power of face-to-face conversations. Thank you for watching and listening. This episode is brought to you by Squirrel's Nut Butter. They make adventure anti-chafe lube and healthy organic restorative skin salve. I don't leave home without it when I go on an adventure. I think it's the best in the business, and I am proud to be an ambassador. So check them out at squirrelsnutbutter.com and use my code ENDURANCE20, all caps, for 20% off. This episode is brought to you by Embark Maple. It's just good energy for endurance sports. We've all been there, the dreaded bonk out on trail. And when that happens to me, I take a swig of this 100% organic and tasty maple syrup, and it brings me back to life. I'm so proud to be an ambassador and have them as a podcast sponsor. So check them out at embarkmaple.com and use my promo code EMBARK20 for 20% off. I want to let you know about a few different ways that you can support this podcast. First, you can like, subscribe, and share with your friends and family. Get the word out for me. And if you find this podcast valuable and entertaining, you can become a YouTube channel member or a Spotify channel subscriber. So for only $2.99 a month, which let's be honest is like half the cost of a cup of coffee at Starbucks, you can keep me going. And you also get some really cool perks like early access to new videos and now exclusive member-only ad-free episodes. Or if you don't want to add more subscriptions to your life, I totally understand. You can also support the podcast by giving a one-time donation using the YouTube Super Thanks feature. The links on how to do all that are always in the description, and I do want to take a minute to recognize and thank all of my current YouTube and Spotify members and all the people that have supported me on this podcast journey along the way. Thanks, guys. Dana, welcome. I'm so excited to have you.
Yes, I'd give you a fist bump, but my arm doesn't reach that far yet.
You're healing up.
We'll do this.
Fist bump.
Yeah.
Injured guy fist bump in recovery. Yeah. So you hit me up with an idea to do a bit of a course preview sort of situation here for the 2025 Pinyons and Pines. Yeah. And after a little bit of back and forth, we decided to do it. And so here we are. I think the plan for the day is we'll do a few housekeeping items, a little disclaimer, a little bit of history that maybe we, myself included, don't know about Pinyons, since I'm kind of came into it late as far as partnering with you and organizing it. And then we're going to go into the some of the new things this year that people can expect, and then we'll kind of do a semi-deep dive on the route itself and walk through the route a little bit and talk about some of the key stuff for people. And we're intentionally releasing this before registration opens. Yeah. Hopefully so that folks can kind of get an idea for what they will be signing up for and what they can expect, both from like a difficulty level and like a logistic planning level. Sound good?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Cool. So yeah, I guess the first to play off what I was just saying, even though we're putting this out, I do want to throw out a little disclaimer here for folks. It is a self-supported event. It's just because we're doing this doesn't mean it's going to be easy and you shouldn't do your planning. These things we always encourage an obsessive amount of planning because things can get dangerous quickly if you don't make good calls in certain situations as far as water and food. And you're doing a technical course and it's pretty much a do-it-your-own risk sort of situation.
Absolutely.
So we just have to shout that out, disclaimer, do your homework. Even though we're putting this out for you as a resource, don't let that stop you from deep diving into the course and making a good plan that you can execute well so you can have a good race.
Yeah. I hope that people actually will use this as a starting point for planning, and maybe even people plan better than they usually do. Yeah. They might think, I didn't think of that. I should plan for that. So, yeah.
Right. So we're adding a new layer of fun complexity.
Yeah. And I think it also, sort of reduces some of the hometown advantage. We have a lot of locals that do Pinyons and Pines, and they kind of know some things, and so maybe this will level the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, totally. That's a good point. Yeah. So the one quick note, this time of year, May, that the race happens, the ride,
Event.
The weather's can be pretty extreme.
Yes.
Extreme temperature changes throughout the day. So what kind of historically the lows and the highs?
I mean, the first year we had a snowstorm that basically prevented all but 2 people from finishing, many inches of snow. So yeah, we've had snowstorms going down to lower elevations in Cottonwood area and Sedona. We've had highs in the upper 80s and 90s. People get nuked with heat. So it can be extreme. So, we'll have to kind of see how things play out the few days beforehand, but we've had that rainstorm a couple of years ago that basically shut everything down. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a sort of volatile time of year, and we won't really know what the weather is going to be until a couple of days before. So it could be cold, could be rainy, could have snow. Weather could be perfect, could be hot, all the above.
Yeah. Also, we're not sure what fire season ever looks like in the spring. And, it was concerning up to this point because it was such a dry winter up until a few weeks ago here that I was really concerned about the potential for fire season. We've gotten some storms, so, my concern has gone down a little bit. But disclaimer, this course could change in the event that there is a forest fire, and we'll have all that information. The routes will be kept up to date.
Correct. I mean, any number of things could happen. In the past, we've had to do last minute changes for closures for fires. We'll do that if necessary this year. Hopefully it doesn't have to happen, but it's possible. I suppose it's also possible that the forest just gets closed entirely. I doubt that'll happen in May, but it could happen later in the summer given our dryness, but hopefully that won't happen in May.
Yeah. So
while we're on the topic of fire, I'd like to just say, let's not have any campfires.
Yeah, no fires. Ever.
Yeah. It's too dangerous right now with how dry it is, even in May. So, no campfires, people.
Definitely. All right, cool. So we are in, what year is this? What
we
year?
Started in 2019 was edition number 1. So I guess this is year 6.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And the unique thing about Pinyons and Pines that originally brought me into it, it was a local race, but also the fact that you change it, we were changing it every year.
Yeah. So the history here, I'll talk a little bit about the history of the name and the route. So I'm always staring at maps, online maps, regular maps. Like I have maps hanging in my house for artwork. Like I love maps. I'm constantly tinkering with putting routes together, and sort of the original route for the first edition of Pinyons and Pines, I put together sort of intending to sort of be like a training route for me to sort of prep for doing things like the CTR and the AZT 300. So the very first route in 2019 was a figure 8 loop. It started and ended in Flagstaff. The first loop went south down to Sedona and then back up to Flagstaff. And that first loop I sort of discovered late in the game after living here for several years, this descent down Kasner Mountain. Despite all my staring at maps, I didn't even know that road existed and sort of sliced this wilderness area. And once I went and rode that and realized that you could get to Sedona that way, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I didn't know at the time, but I'm pretty sure there used to be an early Arizona Endurance Series race that used Kasner. I'm not sure which direction it went. But I didn't know that at the time. But once I learned about that road and put that loop together going through Sedona and back up to Flagstaff, that sort of formed the first loop, which I sort of was calling the Pinyons loop. That's sort of the half of the Pinyons and Pines. And then the northern loop that first year was sort of a variation of Kurt Refsnyder's very popular Craters and Cinder Cones loop, trimming it here and there and modifying a little bit, but definitely used that for inspiration. And that was sort of the Pines loop at the time. I think partly inspired by Kurt's use of the 3 C's and some alliteration in craters and cinder cones. I sort of initially was calling the route Pinyons and Ponderosa Pines. So in my mind, that was the sort of first iteration of the name. I'm not sure anybody knows this, but I then just trimmed it to Pinyons and Pines. Kind of knowing at the time that was going to annoy some people because people constantly say to me, "Isn't a pinion a pine?" But sort of that minor annoyance is actually entertaining to me. So yeah, it got trimmed from Pinyons and Ponderosa Pines to Pinyons and Pines, and that lower southern loop was, in my mind, the Pinyons loop, and the northern loop at higher elevation was sort of the Pines loop. While I'm thinking about it, the way that we spell Pinyons is Pinyons, which I didn't think would be as controversial as it is, but I get messages sporadically about people being annoyed with me for not spelling it with the tilde over the N, the sort of Spanish version. I think, honestly, the way that came to be was I knew there was 2 different spellings, and I just Googled Pinyons, and the Wikipedia page for Pinyons spells it the way I did, so that's the way I chose it. I think I also might have messaged my buddy Dominic, who's is a sort of pine beetle expert, and asked him which spelling, and he told me either one would be fine. So that's what I went with. But there are people who are absolutely annoyed with the spelling, and that kind of cracks me up, but that wasn't intentional. So originally I had zero intention of changing the route every year. But on year 2, I just decided I made some minor changes to the route, and we did the same southern loop and then reversed the orientation of the northern route. So that was like year 2 iteration of the change. And then it's kind of just been different every year since then. And my motivation there is just, there's so many amazing and beautiful places to explore in Northern Arizona. And I couldn't stop myself from wanting people to go to these places. And so that just became sort of the thing. Like, we're going to change Pinyons and Pines every year and go explore new places and see things from new angles, riding in different directions. And so, yeah, so it's been exciting to sort of go and explore and make a new route every year. That also sometimes annoys people because I sort of want to set FKTs and that sort of thing. But I'd rather have people explore new areas and have a new adventure every year than do the same route over and over again.
Yeah. Plus, it gives you something to do.
Yeah, it's my favorite part is to go sort of figure out how to put all these places together.
Yeah.
And it's not as easy as just doodling a line on the map. I mean, you and I have to sit down and think about, where's the water? Where are the resupplies? How far apart are they? What's the timing going to be? So it's not as easy as one might think to sort of put a variety of routes together year after year.
Yeah. And the side effect is you become like the guru of forest road numbers.
Correct.
You're always like, oh, you take whatever 115 to 1255, and I'm like, dude, I don't know. I gotta look this up on a map, bro.
I definitely don't know all the Forest Service numbers, but
you're pretty solid.
I do know quite a few.
Yeah, I mean, I would say second to like a Forest Service person, you're probably one of the most versed people.
Well, don't quiz me because I might disappoint you. But
okay. Yeah, but it's also to your point, it's also really interesting. Putting stuff on paper and then you and I going and writing it is a very different thing than putting 75 people out on a thing that we've kind of just had an idea. We try to like ground proof everything.
Right.
But, and most of the stuff by now we've been able to build on years and years of understanding of different areas so that the ground proofing has become a lot easier.
Definitely a lot easier, yeah, because we're like, oh, we've used that section before, so we know what we're getting ourselves into, and we can kind of stitch that in, maybe reverse the direction, but you always try and do something a little bit new.
Yeah. Well, I think the other game changer too that is new in like route planning and different than the old school days of getting a big topo map out and laying it out on the countertop. There's still some nostalgia to that, but it's heat maps. Right. Yeah. The way that heat maps have played into our ability to build these routes is significant. Where you can put everything on and you can like, I'm having trouble with the words, but you can. I think now in Ride with GPS you can do 30 days or 7 days or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. And then you got your personal heat map and the global heat map. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So the ability to just like look and see where other people this crowdfunding of different access to different trails and different openness of trails and stuff has changed everything. I mean, like when I'm trying to put together even just a fun route, I remember when you were first starting to do your recovery from your injury, you sent me like 5 routes in 2 days. You were on a little bit of a tear.
Well, I had nothing else to do but sit around and
you were
work
like,
with Ride with GPS.
Yeah, I know, dude. It was hilarious. You were like, here's Verde Valley Randonnée XL, and here's Pinyons and Pines maybe for next year. And I was like, whoa, dude, whoa.
Yep.
Whoa. But
yes,
anyway.
I do have a backlog of potential routes.
It's hilarious. It cracked me up. But
speaking of the heat map thing, there's a spot on this year's route that we've used once before in the past. I don't remember what year it is, maybe 2021, where there's not a road on the map, but I saw some old heat map data and just went and checked it out, and there's a way through to connect these sections. Yeah. And so there's a really good example of where that heat map data sort of allowed us to sort of build a route that wouldn't have been able to connect 2 sections otherwise. I mean, it's a short little section of a quarter of a mile where there's really either the road doesn't exist on maps or the roads that are on maps are not in the area where they actually are in reality. So
yeah, it's really cool, man. It really opens up possibilities for mapping people like us that we can share with other people.
Shout out to Ride with GPS.
Shout out, dude, for sure. Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. Let's move into the like housekeeping and kind of new stuff this year section of this. So first thing I wanted to, since we're doing shout outs, we do have some sponsors that have kind of built over the years that have, kind of somewhat been grassroots sort of situation. How did that, just curious, from my own curiosity, how did you start that?
Let's see. So I think, our very first sort of sponsor, somebody who hooked us up, was Pizzicletta. Well, okay, let's back up. I mean, Flag Bike Rev has been a supporter of me in my endeavors, and we've started and finished there since the inception. And so Flag Bike Rev is early on sort of sponsor, opening their doors for us early in the morning on the day that we start. So that's been amazing. And then, Caleb Shift and James, the owners of Pizzicletta, around the same time we were starting, were also, doing this Tour de Snowball and Giro de Eldon, and they were giving away free pizza. I guess I'm embarrassed to say that I then thought I could then ask them for free pizza in addition to that. But that first year I reached out to Caleb and said, hey, I'm putting on this event. This is what people are going to do. We're going to start and end right next to Pizzicletta. Could you hook us up with some free pizza? And so Caleb, gave us every participant free pizza that first year or two. And then has continued to support us with 50% off coupons at the various locations. Pizzicletta and Flag Bike Rev were the first 2 on the scene. And then I think maybe year 2, I reached out to Squirrel Nut Butter about, giving every participant free saddle butter. So I think that was around the time that they sort of launched that product. So those are the first sort of 3 in the first 2 years.
Yeah, cool. And then I brought in Catula a little bit later. They're a local company that they make micro spikes and gaiters and stuff. And I use the gaiters for, have used them actually more for bike packing, for hike-a-bike sort of situations. So they kind of help support us with some of the stuff that we do. We also make, you also were making patches.
So since year 1, I've been making patches, and we've had different artists contribute to those. So Chris Cohn and Shannon, whose last name, I'm sorry, Shannon, I'm forgetting. Starts with a V.
Villegas.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we got it here.
Yep. And then Dwayne, and then Wyatt, and then we've done some variations since then. Wyatt Spalding have helped us create these patches. And so, I've just thrown my own money into making these things. So every participant's got a patch each year. Squirrel Nut Butter samples every year since year 2. Either free pizza or a 50% discount for Pizzicletta. And then you've been securing some raffle prizes for the night before Pinyons and Pines. We usually get together for a gathering, and you've raffled off micro spikes and gaiters.
Yeah, gaiters. There's the gator vouchers. Yeah. Hit those sponsors up for sure when you're in town if you do the race. So shout out to all of those cool people. All right, let's get into some logistical stuff. So registration, it just happened this way. Registration opens on April 15th at 8 a.m. Arizona time, which is also tax day. So you have two important things that you need to worry about that day.
That's right.
And that's 1 month before the Grand Depart, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So the event will start on Thursday, May 15th. And so we just said, let's do it 1 month before. Happens to be tax day.
Perfect. And we will have the links posted on the website.
Correct.
And social media for the registration on that. And your website is danaernst.com. So that's DANAERNST.com/Pinyons Pines. PINYONS.
Yep.
I'll also put it in the link in the description here. And one additional housekeeping item that we'd definitely like to mention is the rules page. Please, folks, spend some time reading and fully understanding the rules page on the website. It's super important that you read through this whole thing and understand it. And if you have any questions for us, send us an email, send us a message on social media. We'll be happy to answer it for you. One other super important thing about this ride, it requires you to purchase an Arizona State Trust land permit, which costs $15 and is valid for 1 year. This is what the form looks like for that. And we'll go ahead and have those links on the website and in the description on this video. And then one last little piece of housekeeping. The northern part of the route crosses a checkerboard of state trust land and private lands of the Co-Bar Ranch. And that requires an access pass in order for us to camp and cross along the 2-track. It is a free access pass, just a form you have to fill out here. So links will also be everywhere for that. So make sure you guys are respectful of the land usage and take care of these items if you get into the ride. We are going to be doing registration again this year directly with track leaders. Let me pull that up here.
Yeah, that's worked really well the last year. And so we'd like to do that again. So thank you, Scott, for working with us to sort of set things up. In the past, we had like a Google form to register. Managing all the drops and the wait lists was kind of a hassle. And then people had to sign up for track leaders after that. And so we've really streamlined the system, which I think we're pretty happy with how things are working out. So thank you, Scott, for working with us to do that. So we're going to do registration direct with track leaders.
Yep. And there'll be Grand Depart registration link, which we'll send out on those in those places. There's also going to be an ITT registration link that's always open, so you can ITT it whenever. One quick note, though, on the Grand Depart. If you do get on the waiting list, there's no guarantees, but there's a high probability that, based on past years, that you'll be able to get in for the actual race day. It always kind of distills down.
Yeah, I think that's true. We're doing registration a little later than we have in the past, so maybe that may end up being less true than it has been in the past. But I do think if people are high on the wait list, they have a really good chance of getting in.
Okay, good to know. Okay, so a couple of logistical changes on the registration form this year. We're doing solo and duo. That's not new. But if you are doing a duo, there was a little confusion last year as far as trackers. And I think we're recommending people, they can use either 1 or 2 trackers.
Correct.
And then they can input that on the registration, and or we'll work on the back end with Scott to make sure that gets sorted out properly as far as how many slots that takes up, because 2 does count for 2, right, in the total cap.
We have to be 74 or less participants. So a duo counts for 2 slots. The duo might have 0 trackers, which is a possibility. They might have 1 tracker, or they could have 2 trackers, but we'll have to sort of do the bookkeeping of how many slots are taken up after the fact. So if people do want to sign up for 2 trackers, you're going to have to fill out 2 registrations.
Okay, good to know. We added a little more robust of a waiver this year with a signature panels. And if you're under 18, which shout out Cruise Blue.
Nice. Could be more.
We have an under 18 contact. We also are collecting emergency contact information this year, just in case.
Yeah, that is something I did in the past on the Google form, but now we've got it in one spot here, which I think is ideal.
Perfect. Arizona Trail Association, Arizona Trail. It's very close to our heart here in Flagstaff. We use it on many iterations. Have used it, parts of it for Pinyons.
Yeah, I don't think there's been an event. I don't think there's been an edition of Pinyons and Pines where we didn't use a portion of the Arizona Trail, and we use it in several different spots this year.
Yeah. So it's not mandatory, it's not required, but we encourage you to go and donate to the Arizona Trail Association to support them and help us keep those trails good to go.
I'd like to really plug that. I know these free races aren't really free. You got to get to the start and all the gear and all this other stuff. But, Dylan and I are not collecting any money. We're not making any money. It costs us money to do this. We'd really appreciate a donation to the Arizona Trail Association, sort of in honor of the work that we're putting in. So please do that. Every little bit helps.
Okay. And then most of the other stuff on this form is normal track leader stuff if you've used track leaders before. The one other thing I want to point out is because we're using track leaders as our only form of registration, we had a little bit of a mix-up last year with people not having their XML feed or their information ready from their tracker when they were filling out the registration form, and they chose the no tracking option when they actually intended to have tracking later on. So we're just trying to don't do that. Don't choose the no tracking option if you want to be tracked. It's really only exclusively for people who specifically don't want to use a tracker at any point during the race at all.
Right, which we're totally fine with. You're still using track leaders to sign up if you intend no tracking, and there's no cost associated with that at all. If you do want to be tracked either by renting a spot from track leaders or using your own, you should sign up for that. And if you don't have your information at hand, that's okay. You can edit and add later.
Okay. So put in something like TBD, or what was the guidance we had on that? It was something like that, right?
You can post a comment in the notes later, but I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
Put something in and you can always edit it later.
So put it in, pay for it. It'll get into the system on the track leader system.
That's right.
And then later on you can edit your submission and put in your actual XML feed later. So you could put in like will provide or TBD or anything like that'll work, I think.
Correct. We don't need a functional XML feed for your spot or inReach at the time that you register, but we do need you to reserve that spot.
Reserve the slot, pay the money, keep track leaders going. It does cost money to run that platform. And I think Scott said he would follow up. He'd be real active on the back end of it, making sure that people got the right XML feeds if they forgot.
Right.
Or whatever the other ones are called. I know that's for the spot. I don't know if do you know if it's still XML feeds for inReaches? Quiz time. I've never used an inReach. Yeah. Or a Zolio. I don't even know what a Zolio is.
That's another option. I use an inReach. I think it's called an XML feed.
Interesting. Is that like the centralized system?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Okay.
You just exposed our lack of knowledge here.
I don't care. I don't care. Don't read the comments.
Let's go with XML.
Cool. I think that's about it on the registration, new stuff on the registration that we wanted to go over. All right, let's go back to the website here. Okay, let's go back to your main website. I did want to give you a shameless plug. There's this little button in the top right on Dana's website. Buy me a coffee. It's not connected or related to the race, but if you want to support Dana financially with the things that we do and the time it takes to put this stuff together and dedicate the time, that's the place to do it.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So go do that. It'll help Dana out. It'll help us both out. So, okay. One new thing this year, you had mentioned Pizzicoletta. They just opened a new restaurant called Sosta. And we're going to decide, instead of ending at Pizzicoletta, like in past years, we're going to end the route at Sosta, right?
Correct. So I think it's probably about a half a mile to maybe a little more than that from the usual ending location. So we just made this decision a couple days ago.
Yeah, so this is the usual ending location, and the new one's going to be just up the way a little bit.
So yeah, we're experimenting with this. I think it'll actually work out great. There's a parking lot there. We shouldn't certainly not hog the parking lot, but there's outdoor seating, and if we finish there during open hours, there's coffee and pastries and food. And I just think it'll be a little bit more comfortable of an atmosphere to finish in. And it's an absolutely beautiful space. They're probably not going to be open for dinner yet at that time. They just opened a couple days ago. And so they're going to be open for breakfast and lunch. So maybe that'll be some motivation to get there during open hours. But that's the current finish.
Sweet. And the coupon, the half-off coupon, will apply to either Pizzicoletta or to a bowl of pasta at Sosta?
I believe that's correct, yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you, Caleb and James.
Thank you. Yeah. Carbohydrates. Thank you for serving us carbohydrates. Yeah, dude, after last year's Pinyons, I had a Diavola pizza. And it switched me over. I was previously a Amore guy. Now I'm a Diavola. It hit something so special after I was just completely worked.
It's good pizza.
Yeah. And it's apparently somewhat sacrilege to have a pepperoni pizza that's Neapolitan style.
Ah, yeah.
Allegedly.
Well, but after bikepacking, you can eat whatever you want.
Dude.
Yeah.
But yeah. Caleb kind of goes by the beat of his own drum. So, okay. A couple other little logistical things. We will be sending out an under 10K resolution version of the course. That's becoming less and less of a thing these days, but sometimes it's better. I've even had problems with certain routes on the newest Garmin device, on the newest Edge device, processing tracks that have 30,000 points or 70,000 points or whatever. So we'll send an under 10,000 point version out like a week before the race start, just because we're going to wait until we're sure that
correct. We never know if there's going to be last minute changes to forest closures from fires or whatever the case may be. So we don't want to confuse people with multiple tracks flying around. And so we will wait to send that reduced file down until we get a little bit closer.
Okay. And that'll go out via email to the people who register. And we'll also send out parking information. Parking's always a black hole.
Yep.
But we do have some pretty good parking options, paid parking options. There's a few free ones that are a little less convenient, but then there's some more convenient paid parking options that we'll send out that you can park in, like parking garages and stuff like that on campus, depending on your comfort level of leaving your car on the street downtown versus in a parking garage that's paid, and how much you want to spend. So we'll send that out so folks can have that and not freak out about that 5 minutes before the grand depart's supposed to kick off. They're still trying to figure out how to park and show up. I've had that. I remember that happening a few times.
Yep.
Anyway, and then again, we'll have the pre-race gathering the night before nearby, where folks can bring your own food, bring your own beverages, and you can pick up the coupon and the samples and all the stuff.
Raffle for the Gators and get to know people and ask us last minute questions and just chat with all the other people that, you may only see for the first 20 minutes of the event. But so it's nice to sort of socialize in a situation where you're not stressed about whether your GPS is working or your spot tracker's been turned on and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can also pick up your trackers at that time too.
That's right. Rentals. If anybody ends up renting a tracker from Track Leaders, I will have those the night before at the gathering. People can get them the morning of, but it's a little bit harder to make sure there's enough time to sort everything out. So we sure would prefer if people picked them up the night before.
Cool. Okay, I think that's it for housekeeping stuff. Do you want to jump into the route specifics?
Let's do
good.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So one of the big questions, let me zoom in here to the start. There's a lot of, well, let's talk about, maybe I can ask you why we decided to go with this course this year a little bit. Why the figure eight this year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that happened in year one, well, first of all, we had this huge snowstorm. But, when you come back after loop one, when you're near maybe your house, like we're going to be a half a mile away from where we are right now in Dylan's house, the draw to your own bed or your car is pretty high. And then that first year, because of the impending snowstorm, most people dropped out at the end of that first loop. And so
Guilty.
I kind of avoided that figure eight loop in the subsequent years, specifically to avoid people dropping out. But then I thought, let's try again and sort of see how tempted people are to sort of quit halfway. And so you're going to have to be pretty diligent about getting back into town and sending off out on the other half of the loop. So this year's route is, loosely speaking, a variation on the first iteration, but in the sort of the opposite direction. There are other changes as well, but loosely speaking, that's what happened. And we also have added in a whole bunch of Flagstaff's new awesome single track that didn't exist in 2019, but exists now.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah, I love the psychological aspect. In fact, that's something I struggle with a lot and have. And I'm actually, hoping to use this as a good training tool.
Yeah, so I have a recommendation for people. You just need to tell yourself which way you're going to turn in advance when you are confronted with that choice. If you try and make the decision at that moment in time, you might make the wrong one. So decide in advance, I'm going to go left when I could go right.
So like a visualization exercise, right? Yeah.
Yeah, unless there's a good reason for it. But yeah, well, it'll be tempting for people to quit halfway.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, this is fantastic. So what that kind of does, unfortunately, is it makes the middle of town a little chaotic and confusing on this. So, I would suggest that folks really just do your homework on that bit so you're not accidentally, or make sure you have your directional arrows correct on your Garmin's or whatever you need to do to make sure that you're going the right places, because the route kind of crosses over itself a few different times.
Yeah, I think twice.
Yeah. So, and it can seem very confusing on paper. So I just, make sure you spend the time to kind of look which way, if you need to make your own notes at certain mileages or whatever. We'll go over it here in just a second, but that would be my only suggestion there on that. So, all right, so let's jump into the beginning here. Let's get the front of this going. So we have, we start at Pizzicoletta. And we kind of have a little bit of a neutral rollout. You want to take over from here?
Yeah, sure. So for the first, looks like the first mile and a half, we'll all be together pedaling up San Francisco Street through downtown Flagstaff. There's always a 50% chance that we're going to get stopped by a train within 30 seconds of leaving the start.
It's part of the experience.
It's part of the experience. I kind of always hope that we do. So we're all going to pedal together out of town. Neutral rollout where you see the information eye there. We're going to turn off of pavement onto urban trail. That ends the neutral rollout. Usually the neutral rollout is a little bit longer, but that's the first hill. And we need to space some people out before we turn on the single track, which is going to happen pretty quickly. So there's a hill a little less than a mile long on that urban trail that goes up to Buffalo Park. And if people are interested in getting onto the single track first, you should probably drill it up that hill. If you're not so interested, then I wouldn't worry about it so much. Once we turn left there, we're going to ride on urban trail through Buffalo Park. It's beautiful. That could be your last chance to sort of socialize and chat with people for a little while. And then we drop down a brand new section of urban trail off the backside of Buffalo Park. That's going to be fast, sort of descending. And then you can sort of see where the trail makes a hard 90-degree left turn. We're on single track from there for basically the next 50 miles. And so you're climbing for a really long time. And near where Dylan's cursor is, things are going to start getting a little bit hard. We're on new single track at that point, and you're going to climb all the way to the summit of Mount Eldon on brand new single track, and the views are stunning. The riding's fantastic.
I did want to point out you crossed the road twice here. You crossed the main road, so don't. I've gotten a little bit of feedback from people that were actually pre-riding this that their Garmin's were kind of rerouting them automatically around on the road. So
I think part of the issue there is that trail's relatively new, and some people might have, follow popular routes on, and it might try and reroute them.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of people still kind of close together here at this point, though.
Yeah, so where your cursor was right there, I bet most people are going to walk for about 30 seconds. There's one little silly steep pitch right through there that people are going to end up walking on right after you cross the road.
Yeah. So don't take the road at this point. Yeah, it crosses the road twice, and then that part you were talking about here. This is the kind of the new stuff that has phenomenal views. Absolutely stunning.
Riding, great views through a fairly recent burn area, but it's coming back. It's beautiful. So yeah, Dylan, get us to the spot where it looks like we split off there, where we hit the road again.
Right. Let's see. You'll come right here.
That's right.
Right. You'll pop out at the road right here.
So you're going to pop out of the road. That's the ending of the new upper Brookbank trail. At that point, we're going to hang a right on Eldon Lookout Road. And I've been toying with doing things like this for years and never, actually decided to do it. But we're going to go out and back to a few summits this year. And so this is our first mandatory out and back. And so we're going to ride all the way to the summit of Mount Eldon. So it's a little over 9,000 feet. That last little quarter of a mile is quite steep. It's going to still be pretty crowded with people at this point, and so you're gonna see people going up and down on that section that we out and back on. So just be polite and wave. There should be plenty of space to do it. There is a gate you're going to have to ride around, so just be polite at that gate. There's room to ride around it, but certainly not room for two people at once. And then where we sort of finish that out and back, we're going to turn on to single track right there where Dylan's cursor is. What mile are we at that point? So like
11 and a half.
11 and a half. We're going to turn on to single track. For the next 1.5 miles to 2 miles, you're on pretty technical, sometimes exposed single track. You could lose your race here if you're a dumbass. So
it's the catwalk is what it's called.
Yeah, it's called the catwalk. It's pretty exposed off to the right. Mm-hmm. It's not the most technical trail, but the technicality together with the exposure is quite a bit. I'd say that's probably one of the more technical spots on the entire route. But don't eat shit there. You could get hurt. So just take it easy. And then right around where Dylan's cursor is, I think we're now at mile 13 or so.
Yeah.
Then things are a lot more mellow. And then you're going to be bombing. You're going to climb a little bit, and then where Dylan's cursor is, you're going to be on brand new single track again. That's actually where I crashed a couple months ago.
You're having flashbacks, bro.
So I just want everyone to point out to everybody where I crashed is one of the easiest sections of the entire route. I have no idea what happened, but it's beautiful, smooth, pristine single track. It's absolutely gorgeous. And we're going to descend that down past where I ate shit and broke a few bones.
So shout out Dana's part of his bones from his finger.
Yeah, look for a crater somewhere off to the right of the trail there. I hit the only rock in the grass.
Okay, cool. And then we kind of hit this central hub area, right, where there's a whole bunch of stuff happening. And this is kind of the Sunset Trailhead and the Schultz tank area, right?
Correct. So here's going to be one point of confusion. The route actually goes hard right there and doesn't go across and straight up north. We're going to hang a right and start heading east.
Correct.
And you're still on single track at this point. You're now on what's called the equestrian bypass of the Arizona Trail, also Little Eldon Springs. Some of this has been recently rerouted. One of the more amazing sections of the route, I think. Fast, fun, flowy. Mostly flowy. There's some sections that are sort of a little bit trickier after that, but it's just wonderful descending single track all the way until we hit Route 89A, where we have our first potential resupply.
Yep, we'll bring you all the way down. And then there's a tunnel right here.
Yep.
And then I think there's actually this resupply here. There's kind of a weird gas station here. The Conoco. It's a little bit of a weird situation. It's no Maverick. Let's just put it that way.
Definitely no Maverick.
There's a Maverick a little bit down further. But if I turn on the heat maps here, I think there's a path. Let me turn on the heat maps.
Yep.
There's a path right afterwards. So right after you go into that tunnel, you can take, there's like these two little kind of old roads, 2-track roads that'll take you right over to that. So turn after the tunnel. Don't try to get there from the top of the street.
Definitely don't try and get there from the other side because there's fences and it's too complicated. So go through the tunnel and then hang a right on the obvious 2-track up to the parking lot.
Yeah, and that's 25 miles in. So, you know, depending on your abilities there, that might be a good first stop to get some resupply.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then this is all Arizona Trail, yeah?
Yep. Arizona Trail and Loop Trail. Pretty fast, flowy, some cindery sections. But yeah, we're on Arizona Trail for a really long time at this point. I think all the way to Marshall Lake.
Yep. So you come over Arizona Trail, you cross into the highway again, a couple more tunnels.
Oh, this is now a good time. Around this time, you're going to encounter some gates. Any gate that people have to open to go through, close it behind you. Unless you see someone, you can leave it open for them. But these gates are meant to be closed. So any gate you go through, close it.
Unless you see somebody right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the rules. Those are the rules. Okay. And then you kind of get into Walnut Canyon area.
Another little technical descent. That's a spot I probably would walk with a bikepacking setup and maybe could ride. Otherwise,
right here.
Yeah.
There's some big step downs there.
There are.
Yeah, they'll sneak up on you too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, what mile are we at there? So maybe we should highlight that.
38.
So around mile 38, there's some technical drops. Once you see white limestone rock, you're going to be descending into Walnut Canyon. There's a few tight turns, a few drops. So just be careful through there. It's not a very long section that's technical, but I personally would get off and walk. I'm sure people with more technical skills than me would ride it with ease, but just be careful there.
Cruise Blue will just be doing bunny hops on it.
It could be. Especially since I crashed, my desire to eat shit is even less than it was before.
Yeah, funny how that happens. Yeah. Okay, so then we have a little point of interest. This is kind of maybe like a B stop for people if they're maybe going more casual. The Fisher Point Overlook is...
Yeah, it's a classic sort of Flagstaff location, the Fisher Point Overlook. Just off route, short detour on single track. Beautiful view down into Walnut Canyon there.
Yeah.
Just before that, you're going to be riding relatively newly rebuilt section of the Arizona Trail. In fact, if Dylan turns on the heat map and backs up to the east, you'll see there's heat map where the trail doesn't really exist anymore in a couple spots.
Over here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
this right.
Yeah. Awesome section.
Okay. Also, this descent down Fisher Point can get a little hairy.
Yeah, you have some familiarity with that, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Cruz calls it star fishing.
Oh, nice.
He looked back and I was starfished on the rock. But I almost lost my teeth on that. So I'm going to go I'll probably take it easy down there this time around.
Yeah, less technical than some of the other sections we pointed out, but certainly easy to eat shit there. Yeah. That's another little half a mile.
Okay.
Rowdy descent.
And then we're in the canyon and kind of come down.
Yep, Sandy's Canyon.
Mm-hmm. And a little bit of a climb out. I don't really remember any of this bit. So
when you're going in the other directions, which we've used in the past, it's super fast. You're going to be climbing through here. So I wouldn't say it's a super hard climb, but really nice single track all the way to Marshall Lake. Okay. While you're up there, there is you'll see Marshall Lake right there off to the north of the route. It's not always a lake. It usually isn't. There may or may not be water there. In May, there usually is. It's a dry year. That lake could just be a pile of mud.
Yeah. Okay. Then you drop down to the road, hit Lake Mary Road for a second. There's another resupply opportunity there. The country store.
Yep. Where I think we're now at around mile 57.
Yeah.
Limited hours, but that's probably a spot you're going to want to hit. So do your research and figure out what the hours are.
Okay.
So the next, I think probably roughly 20 miles is a section of the course we've used a bunch of times in both directions. It's also part of the VVR, the Verde Valley Randonnée. I'd say this is relatively fast, 20-mile section, dirt roads, some climbing here and there, but you can kind of rip through this pretty quickly. There's one possibility to filter water there at Weimer Spring. That's slightly off route to the south. There's signs there, but you kind of have to walk uphill. It's a trickle of a spring. It's not a big pond or anything like that, but if you're short on water, you could stop there, but it's not very long to the next spigot at the campgrounds.
Yeah, goes up and around and then pops
so
out.
What mile do we turn onto the AZT there, Dylan?
Right here?
Yep.
Let's see, 76.8.
So yeah, around mile 76.8, you're going to hang it right onto the Arizona Trail. It's another sort of fast and fun section. A couple gates in there you're going to have to open and close. But along that single track section, we're going to pass two campgrounds. One is Dairy Springs, slightly off route downhill to the east, but there's a water spigot there.
How do you get to that? I don't think I've ever been to that one. Is there a trail or something that goes off here? Do you know?
Good question. Let me turn the heat map back on.
Yeah, let me turn the global ones on. Yeah, I don't see it in either. I imagine there's a side trail here that goes down to it.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I think the other one is...
Yeah, they're so turn it back on, actually.
Sorry, yeah.
No, it's okay.
The personal or global?
Either one. Global.
Okay.
Let's do global.
Yeah, I'll turn them both on there.
So the heat map that goes goes west is the climb up Mormon Mountain.
Yeah, this right here.
Yeah, so if you go south on that or east, it takes you right to the campground. So if you zoom in, you can see there's a trail right there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that drops you right down. And it's downhill and it's fast.
Right,
I've
so you
stopped
gotta
there a few times.
Past it a little and then take this trail over.
Yeah. It's quick. But you got to climb back up.
Mm-hmm.
The other campground, and I always forget which is double and which is dairy.
Doubles at the bottom.
You're going to have to go again a little bit off route to get there. So both of those are a little bit off route. I personally would probably go downhill at the first one. But either way, that's a good opportunity to get water you don't need to filter.
Yeah.
There's bathrooms at both campgrounds as well.
Cool.
Just before Double Springs, you turn off the Arizona Trail and get back onto dirt roads.
Yep. Yeah, right there.
You'll see it's an obvious dirt road. This particular area I'd like to just emphasize is pretty popular with razors, especially the next 2 miles.
Yeah.
I've had some negative interactions in that area. I'd say most of our route isn't going to be a conflict with Jeep traffic and razors, but that section in particular is quite popular for about 2 miles. And we're cruising double track and dirt roads, kind of up and down, but it's fast from here all the way to the interstate. Mm-hmm. So yeah, what mile are we at here? So
this is a pickup from, I think, the part of the old Coco 250.
Yeah.
Yeah. Took this road over. We're at mile 93, 94 when we hit the interstate.
Yeah. So an interesting sort of side story. When I went to grad school at NAU in the late 90s, before digital maps and ride with GPS, Cosmic Ray had a mountain bike book that was sort of cartoon drawings of routes that you used to be able to buy at local coffee shops when you lived here in undergrad. Did you see the Cosmic Ray book?
I have the book.
Yeah.
So the guy that I work with, my colleague at the print shop, used to print them at his print shop.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's
so this
small town connection
route
there.
from the Arizona Trail to Sedona, what used to be when people would go get lost out there, because the only way you knew how to do it was from Cosmic Ray's sort of hand drawings.
Yeah.
The roads are a little bit more well-traveled now, partly because of the Razor and Jeep traffic. But yeah, if you wanted to ride your bike from Flagstaff to Sedona, this was the way there.
Yep.
Following Cosmic Ray's cartoon drawings.
Dude.
Yeah, so
awesome.
part of history here.
Shout out Cosmic Ray. Dude.
Yeah.
I did want to note, so this ADOT yard, so you cross under the interstate, and then the ADOT yard, there's a spigot here. There's a Ramada and a spigot. I'll turn on the heat maps here. It does kind of look like a little, there's like a residential area. I think it's the people that live, they're employed by by the ADOT, by ADOT, but this has been accessible to us at all times. And it's off route just a little bit, and you go in and you kind of go into this little residential area, and there's a ramada and a spigot right there at the ramada and some benches and stuff. And people have been pretty cool as long as we're cool in that area. Yeah.
So be polite going through there. That is someone's neighborhood. But there's a spigot just to the right of the ramada, at the ramada. People do get confused there. So when you go about halfway back from the road to the spigot, if you look sort of straight ahead, it looks like you're staring at a fence for the ADOT yard. But if you just keep riding, you'll ride past that. Yeah, the ADOT yard is to the right there.
Yeah.
And you just ride past that gate to the left, back into that residential area. Yeah, I mean, there's some funny stories from like years, I think it was year 2 or year 3.
Just the wedding.
Yeah, there was a wedding happening when people went there, and people got stuck there, but people ended up drinking with the wedding party and getting some free food. So I don't expect that to happen this year, but yeah, there's been some fun.
Dude, there were some drunk cowboys there when I was there. I remember that. Yeah. Oh man.
I think that was year 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was amazing, dude. Okay. All right. Let's go back to terrain and turn off the heat maps. All right. So now,
so that's at mile like 95. So you're almost at 100 miles in. You've done 50 miles of single track, or more at this point, in a bunch of dirt road. And you sort of finally start to get going downhill for a while.
One thing I would like to point out is I've been caught in some of the world's worst death mud in this area.
Oh, good point.
All the way to basically when you start to lose elevation. This stuff can get
that's right
horrible peanut butter, show-stopping mud, all the adjectives. So if there's weather, that's just a consideration for folks.
Yep. So you're in like basalt, rock type at that point. You're sort of the exposed top of the Mogollon rim there. So that rock type, when it gets muddy, is a showstopper.
Mm-hmm. I had a brand new Fox Fork, brand new, never been ridden. And I just got it covered in mud, dude. It hurt my soul.
Yep.
Anyway. Side note. Okay, and then we start to get into the next, I would say, microclimate of the course, which is the beginning of the drop into Sedona. Probably the most magical section, the coolest views.
Yeah.
Schnebly Hill. You got to stop here. This viewpoint. There's a viewpoint up here.
Yep.
Also, an initial one. We don't have it marked, but we have 2. There's 2 viewpoints, I think. So this really is kind of the main one that all the pink Jeeps and everything go up to. And then do we take trails from here?
I don't think we pick up Munn's Wagon Trail until the next overlook. Yeah.
Okay. So that's
descending Schnebly Hill Road, which, is a dirt road, but it's not the most comfortable descent. It's pretty bouncy.
Right, and here looks like where we pick up Munn's Wagon Trail.
Yeah, so at about mile 101.5, you're going to pick up Munn's Wagon Trail and descend that for, I think, 4 miles. The top is overgrown, doesn't get ridden very much. I mean, you're so close to one of the most popular trails in Sedona, but nobody rides that section. It's kind of rubbly, a little overgrown, so watch your handlebars. But by the time you get down to the Cow Pies and near Hangover Trail, the trail becomes much more well used. You're going to encounter hikers no matter what day of the week it is, whether you're there. Well, okay, if you're there in the middle of the night, you're not going to see anybody. But if it's during the day, you're going to encounter hikers, and we need to be polite. Yield to those hikers. You're not going to lose any time by doing that, and it could make us look really bad if we're blowing through there. So
yeah. Okay, one thing I did forget to point out here earlier, let's just back up real quick.
Yeah.
Camping options, probably want to camp. If you're going to camp before like 100 miles, you probably want to do it like before you start to get into the Sedona area. Back here in sort of this when you're up on the rim still.
Mm-hmm. And the camping sort of at that Schnebly Hill overlook or in that vicinity is a great place to do it. And there's actually another road heading south from that section. I think that the Coco uses as a stage stop.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, there's this road here. It's right before the overlook. It heads off, and there's camping all along the rim here.
Yeah.
There's like little, and they're really difficult to get to campsites. They require like real high clearance vehicles. So if you get there at the right time, there's just incredible camping all along this area here.
That road is not the smoothest road. It's not. You're not going to cover ground quickly on that chunky stuff. So if you're sort of cooked at the end of 100 miles or so, just know that you're probably not going to want to pedal very far before you set up a tent or lay on the ground or whatever it is.
But all this stuff before, this is all national forest.
Correct.
So you can disperse camp anywhere along this area.
Yep.
So just wanted to point that out, because you're really getting in your main resupply, your first, I would say, like big resupply in Sedona, right?
Yep. One thing I do want to point out is near the end of that Munns Wagon Trail, there's at least one spot I consistently walk, and it can kind of sneak up on you. Most of the trail is pretty easy, but there's a descent sort of with a wall on your right and some trees. Dylan, you probably ride it all the time, but even when I'm not bikepacking, I usually walk it. It's a 5-second walk sort of near the end of the descent on Munns Wagon Trail. So just be on the lookout for that. There's a couple gnarly spots.
Cool. Okay, and then we grab road and bomb down the road, cross Oak Creek. There's a roundabout here, and then we kind of get into a resupply area and resupply options here in Sedona, right? So we have like a Filiberto's right here, and then I think there's a plaza up here, I think, that has a few different options too.
Yep.
There's a Chipotle like somewhere up here. Wildflower, I think, is up there.
To the south of where we hit the first roundabout, I think is it a Maverick? Circle K.
Yeah, that gas station.
No, south of where you are right now.
Right. Oh, yeah. Down here.
Yep. There's a Circle K in that, just a little bit off to the route to the south.
Yeah,
it's pretty common resupply on the Sedona big freaking loop.
Oh yeah, it's a little ways down. It would be a little bit off route, I think. Let's see if I can find it here. I know what you're talking about, though.
It's north of that.
Yeah, it's just down a little ways. And you think I'm too far south here?
I'm not sure.
All right.
But there's definitely a Circle K. Do your research and you can find it.
Yeah, okay.
So we don't make you dizzy here.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
That's all good. Somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
I don't think it's that far. I think it's probably a mile on pavement.
Yeah, because there's also a gas station up here, but it's kind of crappy. Yep. Just want to warn people. It's not the best. Yeah,
there's tons of resupply options, but you're probably, if you're a little bit spun out, you could waste a lot of time riding around trying to figure out what to do. So that's a spot you should have a plan in advance for.
Okay, cool. Then important note right here as you're continuing on out of the roundabouts, there's a tunnel that goes under this highway. So don't try to cross it on top. Look for that tunnel, and it'll bring you across and under there. Yeah,
follow the route there. You're on dirt when you get to that tunnel, and you get access to the Sedona single track, but it's not like labeled. I mean, locals know about it. We know about it. Follow the route, but it's not signed at that point.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to keep you off pavement and away from the cars at that point.
Okay.
All right, the next little section, maybe it's not little, you're on single track for quite some time, a little bit of pavement here and there, but you're basically riding Sedona single track from, let's see, we're at
107.
107 all the way to...
let's see, all the way around. We'll come back to Devil's Sinkhole. Yeah, this is all single track, all the way to here, Thunder Mountain Trail at 113.
Yep.
Let me zoom out a little bit on this. So yeah, this section here. Do you want me to go back to the terrain mode?
Your choice.
All right, we'll keep it at the hybrid for now. Yeah, so this is all Sedona single track all the way down, and there's a pretty cool sinkhole right here called Devil's Kitchen Sinkhole that's worth a quick picture. It's got some history to it. One of 7 sinkholes in the city. Yeah, you can read about the history here, but pretty cool little spot. It gets super heavy in traffic. There's a trailhead right here, so coming into that, be careful of people, and there's just tons of tourists there. And then it kind of thins out a little bit as you go along these trails. Yeah, and then we grab road, back on road, and you come down and there's another resupply option. So if you made a mistake and messed up on the first time, you get a little bailout option here because it's a long ways. That's pretty much it, I think, until Flagstaff as far as resupply.
That's correct. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. So we're at mile 114 at this point. It's going to be a long way before you're going to get access to food again.
Mm-hmm.
And that single track in Sedona is slow going. So if you've never ridden there before, you should budget it taking 50% longer than you think it's going to.
Yeah, 1.75 Sedona ratio.
That's right, the Sedona factor. I was always thinking it was like 1.6.
I think it's 7.5. Every year that I get older, it gets a little longer.
Yeah. The good news is there's a pretty decent shoulder on 89A there while we were on pavement. And then you get into a neighborhood and you're back on single track for quite some time. A little bit faster single track, I'd say, but still budget extra time here.
Okay. And then one last chance to fill up on water. Let's see, let me look at this on the satellite image. I think that's a seasonal creek, so I'm not sure if there's actually going to be water in there.
Almost always water there.
Okay.
But we're in a drought. All these places that we've got marked, you need to be thinking ahead about what if there isn't water at one of these next spots. So anything we've labeled as seasonal or possibly water, there's zero guarantee. I mean, even if Dylan and I go out there and look 24 hours before the event starts and there's water, there might not be when you go through. So this is something that people are going to have to start. This is a time where you're going to have to start being a little bit thoughtful about how much water you're taking on and what if there isn't water at the next reliable source. We'll try and provide people with details about those things when we get closer. But don't assume that everything that's labeled with a little water dot actually has water.
Unless it's like a spigot or an open restaurant or something.
Yep.
Yeah. A guaranteed spot. So, okay. Let me see. Let me reorient myself here. Where are we?
Outer Limits. Beautiful single track. All the way up to the Irie Trailhead.
Mm-hmm. And then we take a second of road, and then we get onto some 2-track, I think, right here.
That's correct. So, we're going to be on... That's Boynton Pass Road at that point, so that's super fast. So
should have quizzed you on the road number. Sorry,
I don't know the road number on that one, but I do know it's Boynton Pass Road, even when it turns from pavement to dirt. We're roughly mile 125-ish, 124 at that point. Mm-hmm. This is pretty fast. Mm-hmm. There's some little climbs here and there, but we're cruising from mile 125 all the way to sort of below the climb to Kasner.
Yeah, also pretty well traveled, side-by-sides again, a lot of adventure outdoor folks from Sedona in that area, so ride defensively.
Yes.
And then you hit a couple of these heritage sites that if you're kind of, not doing a full race mode, it's worth a stop. Honanki and Palatka are the two heritage sites. They're cliff dwelling sites there in Sedona, so they're kind of, I think they're a pay sort of thing. You got to pay.
You definitely have to pay to
them.
get in there. Yeah. But they're worthy stops if you're not pressed for time. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then after this Honanki, I think we hit some more technical 2-track roads through here.
Yep, some little short climbs that are going to hurt your legs at that point.
Yep. And then back around to 525C. And this water stop, this is kind of what I was planning on, like the last probable water stop before a big dry bit coming up as we ascend back onto the rim. I know that I wanted to point this out for folks. There's a tank, like a really gross cattle tank right here, but there's also, let's see if we can zoom in here a little more. So this tank is nasty, and that's not the water source we were talking about. There's actually like a pump house.
Yes.
And like a little building and a little trough that has like water being pumped into it from this pump house up higher. I'm definitely going to check that for reliability to see if they have that on as we get much closer to the race. Just everybody do make good decisions on yourself, but I'm planning on, making sure that that's my last resupply water stop before I go up the long climb.
Yeah, I will say that particular spot is a little bit tricky to find, but as Dylan pointed out, there is sort of a pump house above it, and you can sort of see in the satellite imagery how there's a green section there.
Yeah.
It's very visible on the satellite map, but when you're in that area, you kind of have to look around. But
so there's a gate right here.
Yep.
And you got to take this back and then you can see the little trough here, and then there's the giant tank. Then that's like moss or something, I think, like sitting on top of the tank. Last few times I've been there, there's been water there for sure. Like pretty good filterable water.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good stop.
Okay.
Almost guaranteed water.
Almost.
Yep.
I'll try to double check that one.
Yep. And now, within a mile after that, you're going to be going uphill for a really, really long time. So maybe hit the terrain mode here so people can see the topo lines.
Yeah, and one thing to note here, here's the Kasner climb. So as you were talking about earlier, we're going up Kasner instead of down Kasner, which is going to be good times.
Yeah, so this is new. We've already had a few people out pre-riding, and I was thinking, really, do you want to do that twice? Now you know what you're doing to yourself? So
masochists.
Yes, and everybody's reported it wasn't as bad as they expected. So that was surprising to me. So you're going to be climbing even before you get to the wiggles there.
Yeah,
that road down Kasner Mountain was put in for power lines. It's steep and loose and rocky. People should expect to walk sections of that, certainly towards the top. But the steep part of it's only a mile long. So even if you had to walk the whole thing, which is possible, mile and a half of walking at that point until you get up to where the wiggles stop.
Yeah.
Which is about mile 139, I believe.
Right.
Yep.
There.
Yep. Now you're not done climbing at that point. You're going to go downhill for a while, and then you're going to probably get off and walk your bike again up that spine, probably a mile 140.
Yeah.
141. Yeah. So that's pretty easy. Once you get to where the trail hits that ridge, you're along a spine there. It's a really improbable road. You're probably going to walk up that thing too. A couple minutes of walking.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep. And then around mile 145, things start to get a whole lot easier. It's kind of a maze of roads back there. So we've navigated through, and it alternates between, kind of chunky 2-track and dirt roads. Just follow the route. It should be no problem.
Yeah. I don't know about this water.
It's hit or miss.
Okay. So don't rely on that, folks.
Yep. Seasonal for sure.
Okay.
It's you can see it. You'll know when you're en route whether there's water in that tank.
Okay. Same with this one too.
I believe that you're right at the West Fork. Again, in a dry year, might not be water there, but that West Fork feeds all the way down into Oak Creek, and a lot of times when you cross the bridge right there, you can see water below. You just kind of have to hike it down to it, and there is sort of a little wildlife sort of tank specifically for that water that holds water, but you should be able to see from the concrete bridge whether there's water. Hey, doggy. Yeah, what mile is that? The West Fork area is
154.
154.
Yep. Okay.
For those who are interested, that's a sort of a Flagstaff classic start of a slot canyon is right there where we cross that bridge.
This whole section here where the fork comes in.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful area.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And then you're cruising forest roads with slight grade.
Slight grade. Some washboards here and there, especially right where Dylan's cursor is there around mile 160s. Probably some washboard. Probably the worst on the whole route.
Yeah.
On Woody Mountain Road there. When you hit Rogers Lake, which may or may not be a lake, you can even see it says Rogers Lake, but you don't actually see a lake on the map. It's a beautiful view.
Yeah, it's a giant, looks like a crater.
Yeah. There's sometimes water in that, and often there isn't. Yeah, you hang a right at the Rogers Lake Recreation Area, go through a gate, and you're now on beautiful single track for a little while. Mm-hmm. That's part, not quite yet, but we will turn onto the Flagstaff Loop Trail.
Okay. And then you bunch of single track. This is fun, this stuff.
Yeah, super fun.
Ripping. People should be really the front of the pack should be getting real squirrely at this point.
Yep, especially if it's dry.
Yeah.
There's a couple of tight corners in there that sort of decreasing radius. You can kind of rip around a corner.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, single track. You're on Flagstaff Loop Trail at this point all the way till you hit Woody Mountain Road again.
Okay, I'm trying to pull it in there.
Yep.
Right here is where you hit Woody Mountain. Is that right?
Yeah, 172-ish.
170. Yeah, okay. Right there. Okay.
Yeah, so for those of you who are keeping track and taking notes, I forgot what mile we were at back in Sedona, but you're almost to civilization again in your first opportunity for food and that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. Here, let me zoom out and get a pull on that so we can let folks know the distances there. Yeah, so the last real resupply in Sedona is going to be somewhere around 111, 110. And then you're not looking 174, 175.
With a lot of climbing. You're down in Sedona, 4,000 feet. You're climbing up the Flagstaff, 7,000 feet. So a change in elevation and temperature, and it's a long way to go. So plan accordingly.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and then we bring it in, and this is I think this might be there's a 24-hour gas station here.
There's a Maverick that is that middle thing that we marked. Oh,
Chevron.
Next one over to the right, Maverick. Go to the right.
Go to the right.
See the one I marked?
There it is.
Boom.
Maverick for all you Maverick fans.
It's a good Maverick.
It's a good Maverick.
Yeah, that Woody Mountain store, by the way, if you time the hours, it's got some pretty good food in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Good
Fresh
to know.
coffee. Yeah.
They have little.
It's been a while since I've been in there, but
mini espresso shots.
Yeah.
They look like creamers in this Maverick, but they look like a creamer, but they're shots of espresso.
Nice.
You can pocket a few of those for your coffee. Take them for the road.
Nice.
Hot tip, y'all. Okay.
That is your last resupply.
That's where I'll be, right there at that Maverick, cheering you guys on.
This is your last resupply. I'm going to say it again. This is the last
Yep.
time you're going to be able to stock up on food.
There's the
I forgot about parks.
Yeah.
We should edit that out so I don't confuse anybody.
Yeah.
I withdraw my comment. We do have parks coming.
Okay. Let me hit the terrain. All right. So then we go up on the mesa. You kind of cut through town. So you don't really go through the main part of town.
Yeah, that was on purpose. A couple of reasons. Remove temptation from people to go back to their car or go home, but also just to stay away from cars and traffic. So at this point, after that resupply, you're on urban trail and single track, sort of above town to the west.
Now, I would say, to go on your comment, this is the last 24-hour resupply.
Correct.
There is the Peak View Market here, but it has very limited hours, so probably plan on that 24 Maverick or the Chevron. Yep. But if you get in a bind, this one's here. So, okay, this is where things get confusing again. Before we start the second loop, let's take a quick little break. Okay?
Pee-pee break.
Yeah, I got a pee-pee.
Sounds good.
Let some liquid out, put some more liquid in.
That's right.
All right. We'll
Let's
be back.
do it.
We'll be right back, folks. And we're back, folks.
We're back. And now we turned down the mile markers, which we should have done before. So next time we do this, we'll remember that little trick.
Yeah.
So
you live and you learn.
Yeah, before we move on to the second loop, I just want to point out we're at mile, 180-ish. And you have just done a magnificent tour of northern Arizona, starting in Flagstaff, going through the Ponderosa Pines, dropping down into Sedona, ridden some classic single track, epic climb back up Kasner Mountain, and now you're back in Flagstaff. And you might be tempted to quit, to go back to your car, or to go home. But don't, folks. Even though everything you just did was awesome, the second half of this route, the northern loop, is amazing and a completely different experience than what you just had. So don't leave it behind. Go back out there.
I second that.
Yeah.
Take that espresso shot, put it in your mouth, and keep moving.
Yeah, what you're about to do is I'm not sure I have a favorite half of this figure eight, but I certainly wouldn't want to miss out on the northern half.
I've been waiting years for the northern half to come back.
Here we are.
I'm so excited, dude. It's so awesome. It's literally some of the coolest volcanic beauty.
Great.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
So again, we get a little, let's take us through town here. So you're kind of coming out of the north half of town, and it gets a little confusing here, so keep good notes. But
yeah, you're gonna cross Highway 180. When you do that you're gonna come back to that point just near the finish, and you're gonna bomb back down. So just know, hey, when I get back to right here, I'm basically done.
Right, as you finish that.
That's right.
This is the start and the finish of the second loop, basically.
Correct.
Yep. So this bit here, you want to talk about this bit?
Yeah, okay. So, all right, there's a masochist in me. Some people might say, oh, Dana, you just put that in there because you're not racing this year. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, there's only so many ways to go. the first half of, so we're back on single track at this point. Some of these trails are relatively new, amazing stuff. Just as a warning, again, this is a popular trail area. Depending on what time of the day you're here, on the weekend, you're going to encounter some hikers. You're probably going to encounter some other mountain bikers who are probably going to be riding this in the opposite direction of us. So we're going to start climbing up. Beautiful trail. Around mile 184 or so there. Things get a little bit harder. You're probably going to have to do a little bit of walking at this point in your legs. You're going to be on the Big Bang Trail. I would say one of Flagstaff's premier trails. Most people ride it in the opposite direction. I actually prefer going up. So you might have to do a little bit of bike in there, but once you get to mile 186,
dude, they're definitely gonna have to do some
for sure. But I mean, maybe only 10 seconds at a time. It's not going to be an hour or anything.
Yeah.
It's not that steep for most of it, but you are climbing, and the views are spectacular. I mean, this is just, I think it's some of the best riding in the country. And yeah, you're going to be tired. You're going to have sore legs, but it's worth it to be in the position that you're in. So just enjoy it, and you can curse my name if you want later. This was my idea.
Yep.
But once you hit mile 186, things are a little bit easier. I actually think mile like 186 to where that mile marker is at 187, you're on Middle Brookbank Trail. That's actually one of my favorite trails in town. I just think the forest through there is just gorgeous. Yep, you're on single track from 187 all the way to 180, and now you're going to be back to the spot you were at mile 17 a long time ago, so it should look familiar.
Awesome.
But you're going to be a completely different frame of mind. So once you hit Sunset Trail, you're going to pop out onto Schultz Pass Road for a moment, and then you're going to get on what's called Waterline Road. You're going to climb Waterline Road from roughly mile 190, and you're going to climb a gradual climb up on the shoulder of the San Francisco Peaks for about 10 miles.
There we go.
It's burned 3 times now, maybe. It's a lunar landscape. It's kind of shocking, actually, how much damage has been there. Despite that, it's a beautiful climb, beautiful dirt. Not too steep, and you can just kind of take in the views and hope there's not a headwind, but just gorgeous views out east from Waterline Road, and you're on a sacred mountain there.
And wasn't open. It just opened. It wasn't open for last year's Pinyons.
That's right. So we've had to avoid this a few times because it's been closed from flooding from the fire, and it's now open. The last time I rode it, it was in just impeccable shape. Should be in decent shape. There could be some damage after the winter, but not for long stretches, just here and there in the drainages. Stunning.
And then you get in, you turn in, and you start to head towards Inner Basin, and this is the Inner Basin area.
Yep. So that Inner Basin is sort of where the volcano originally for the San Francisco Peaks blew out.
See if we can kind of see it there. You can kind of see that explode, the crater there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful spot, and certainly worthy to take in. Before you get into that Inner Basin spot, the trees are back after the burn, and you're in this beautiful aspen grove. I think we're coming in on 10,000 feet. That's the high point of the route, I believe.
Yeah, let's
just shy.
See. Yeah, 93.37. Man, you're close to that very first summit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we're at 9,000 feet. It looks like 3 times on route.
Amazing.
This is the second time.
So this section, you're going from 4,500 feet down in Sedona all the way up, pretty much like that whole bit, like however long this is going to take. That's a lot of climbing.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So around mile 199, you got to have to be kind of on the lookout for it, but there's a right-hand turn onto the Inner Basin Trail. This is one of my favorite trails in town. It's not very long. It's rooty and rocky. It probably will not be at this time of year popular with hikers, but again, if you encounter hikers, be polite, yield to the hikers. You might be tired enough that by the time you're bombed down that thing, you might think, Dana, I can't believe this is one of your favorite things, because it is kind of bumpy, but it's beautiful terrain. If you were fresh, you'd agree with me, but maybe at mile 200, you're gonna wish the trail was smoother.
Sweet.
Down into Lockett Meadow. Make sure you take a moment to turn around and look behind you and just sort of take in the spot you're in. I mean, I think it's one of the most beautiful places in the country.
Yeah.
Then you're on Lockett Meadow Road.
There's a little tank here. Just wanted to point out that's normally, I don't think I've ever seen it without water.
Yeah, it's algae filled. Is that the right word? Algae?
Yeah. Moss.
But yeah, if you stick your filter below, you can get some fresh water. I've also never seen it without water.
Yeah, but you're not too far from a legit water source at this point.
Yeah, so you're going to be bombing down fast Lockett Meadow Road.
Yeah, so that's this.
Yeah, I want to point out some kind of dangerous spots can sneak up on you. This road has seen some damage from the fire. It's mostly pretty fast, but some of the corners could be blown out from flooding damage or loose sand. So just be careful, because you can get going pretty darn fast on that, and most of it's not sketchy. So the sketchy spots can come up on you, and if you're tired at that point in time, so just heads up on that.
Last time I was on it, they had the road closed, but there were big construction trucks coming the other way and driving way too fast. And dude, it was almost bad.
That shouldn't be the case for us. There shouldn't be construction vehicles, but the road might be closed to vehicles, which I'm hoping it still will be at that time.
But be defensive either way, for sure. Okay, and then we cross under the 89, cross over the 89. There's no...
Yeah.
You cross it, so be careful crossing that highway. People drive really fast on that.
Yeah, big trucks cruising down there, so just be careful.
All right.
Yeah, you're going to hit pavement. I love this spot where you are coming into where the route splits. You're in what's called Benito Park. It's such beautiful. And again, take a moment to look behind you. Gorgeous. Fast. Okay. Another controversial point, or just before mile 208 there, we've got a mandatory out and back up to the summit of O'Leary Mountain. Undoubtedly, people are going to be cursing my name here. It's beautiful. It's also steep, and near the top, it's cindery and loose. Depending on conditions, you probably can ride most of it. If it's loose and dry, and you got skinny-ish tires, you might have to walk sections here and there. But the views from up there, again, you're going to be up to, I think it's just under 9,000. Yeah, look at that, 8,919 feet. There's a fire tower up there. Taking the view, eat some calories, bomb back down the hill. And then just after turning back onto pavement, you're going to encounter the entrance to Sunset Crater National Monument. There is a booth there. Every single time I've ever ridden through on my bike, I've never been asked to pay, given the current cuts to national parks and national monuments and that sort of thing. It's very likely there won't be anybody at the booth anyway, but just as a heads up, it's possible you'll have to pay an entrance fee to get into the national monument. I've never had to do that.
Okay. And then there's a visitor center, I think, here there's outdoor water.
Yes, there's a water fountain outside the building. So you got 24-hour access to the drinking fountain. I think everyone should stop there. The visitor center may or may not be open depending on what time you roll through. There are bathrooms there, but they're not open at night. So the drinking fountain you have access to, the bathrooms you may or may not have access to. Sometimes there is a vending machine outside the visitor center, and sometimes that vending machine is operational. So don't assume that the vending machine is going to be there, but I would pack some quarters. Because sometimes when the vending machine's not operational, it's because it doesn't take dollar bills. So bring some quarters with you. There's probably going to be a vending machine outside that you can get some extra calories on. Don't assume it's going to be functional, but it often is there, and sometimes doesn't work.
Do you know if there's food in, like, snacks or anything inside the visitor center?
Very, very limited snacks inside.
Okay.
They might have some Snickers and that sort of thing, but certainly not I wouldn't plan on a full resupply there.
Okay.
But water for sure, top off.
Yeah, because coming up, there's probably the biggest carry of the entire course, both for food and for water.
Correct.
Yeah. So very, very critical that you make good decisions here for water and previously probably for food when you were in town. Super critical.
Yeah, it's possible that there's also going to be the water spigots on in the Benito campground, which is sort of wedged in the V there, north of the water dot and below mile 208. There's a campground in there. I've actually never stopped there, but I'm pretty sure they have a water spigot. But you'll have access to the water at the visitor center.
Okay. Then we carry on and get some road climbing. Sorry, it looks like it's up and down.
It's up and down. It's fast. It's beautiful. You're going to ride through some lava flow areas. Going to ride by the shoulder of Sunset Crater. I personally think this is it's just stunning terrain. Just soak it up. I hope you're there during the day. It's just gorgeous. I part of my motivation for even just putting this route together is specifically so we can ride through this section. It's just so freaking cool.
Yeah.
Yep, right there at the Cinder Hills Overlook, you're going to bang a left. Ooh, I actually don't know the road number, Dylan. I call it the Cinder Road.
Can take a guess. We can look in. We can zoom in. We're really testing Dana's knowledge here.
Yeah, I literally don't know. I'm going to say it's 200 something.
546.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had it.
It's okay, buddy.
I'm not even sure it's labeled, which is maybe why I don't know. That's sort of locally known as the Cinder Road.
Love it.
So yeah, what mile do we get onto that thing? Around mile 222.
Yeah, just before 222.
It's not too bad initially, but you were riding through relatively deep cinders from mile 222. It's about 10 miles, I believe. Yeah, all the way to 228. Mm-hmm. Some years that's just ripping fast. In other years it's dry and the cinders are deep and you just come to a dead stop. We did not address early on the gravel bike thing, but this is a really good example of, even though it's a road, you don't want to be on a bike with skinny tires through here. You'd be walking the whole thing. You don't need fat tire bikes, but the fatter your tire are, the faster you're going to rip through this section.
Yeah. I have to say, dude, this bit is like being transported to a planet from Star Wars.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
This whole section.
Yeah. And I hope people, again, are seeing this during the day. It's just so freaking cool. Black sand. It looks like you're on the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, this whole area, NASA had training missions here in Sunset, and then in the upcoming next bit, they trained because it replicated the moon.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Okay.
Yeah, and there's nothing on the southern loop that's anything like what we're about to ride through. I mean, this is just, so cool.
Okay.
Yep, at mile 228, you're going to get back on a really fast dirt road. Good dirt. Once you cross 89 again, be careful crossing. You're going to be on a mixture of dirt roads and two-track of various qualities. It's mostly pretty fast. I'd also like to point out that you're going to be, at that point, once you cross 89, on a patchwork of state trust land and Babbitt Ranch. So we need to be extra respectful coming through this section. Everybody should be respectful everywhere on course. You're probably not going to see a single person, but this is a place where we do not want to risk doing something wrong and risk getting events like ours, and in particular ours, shut down by doing something stupid. So if Dylan, you can zoom out.
Mm-hmm. Are you allowed to camp in this area?
So yeah, I was just going to say, so right where the eye is in the north part of the map there.
Right here. Yeah,
around mile 245. So that is SP Crater. A little history here. SP is short for shit pot. It's one of the coolest looking cinder cones around, and we're going to ride right by it. We have gained permission to ride by that crater. It's closed. Oh yes, thank you. You did the satellite view. It's closed to people climbing the crater due to golden eagles. So we have permission to ride through here, but we don't want anyone camping anywhere near this crater. So let's just say 5 miles on either side of this crater, nobody should be camping.
Okay.
And definitely do not get off your bike and climb up the crater. So we're allowed to pass through on these roads. and you're on Babbitt Ranch, just north of mile 245, where you bang a left, and then look at that lava flow on the satellite map.
Yeah, it's incredible.
You can't quite appreciate it when you ride through there. It's still so cool, but you'll know when you cross over that. But just look at that in the satellite view. That is so freaking awesome.
Yeah, and if you zoom out, there's tons of craters in this area. So if I go back to the terrain map, you can see every one of these little pock marks here.
Yeah.
These little zits on Mother Earth are all craters that were expelling lava or venting gas or whatever at some point. And this is really the only one that has that giant lava flow like visible as you go through it. Whoops, let me go back to
the other lava flow is near Sunset Crater
that
you ride by.
So all of this was lava flow.
Yep.
And then you have this big lava flow right up here that we cut right through. So back to my original question. So you can camp like leading into that, like all along this road. Is that right?
Yeah.
You just don't want to, of course, like you said, camp close to that.
Yeah, we want to avoid that Golden Eagle closure. So let's make sure we're through that.
And you camp, and to back up a little bit, you don't want to camp obviously anywhere in this national park area.
Correct. But once you turn off
National Monument.
Yeah. Once you turn off onto that Cinder Road.
Here.
Yeah. There. I've camped through there. Okay. It's great because the ground is really soft. That's a great spot to camp anywhere along that Cinder Road. Okay. It's a cool spot to be able to say you slept in a sort of little lava field there, and the ground is nice and soft. So cool. Great spot to set up a camp or cowboy camp.
Okay, good to know. All right, so yeah, still there, like no supplies here, no water, no food.
There's no water anywhere,
and it can get exceptionally hot in this section.
Yep, even though I think we're still at 6,000 feet at that point. Is that right?
Yep,
right at.
Dude. Yep,
good.
Nice job.
Yeah. So you are cruising along on ranch roads at this point. So you're, again, on a patchwork of Babbitt Ranch, one of the largest still operational ranches in the United States, and some state trust land. So be respectful. There's rangers around. There's wild horses around, cattle around. It can get quite windy in here because it's exposed. You're not in the trees at this point. It's kind of grasslands. If you got a headwind, you're going to be cursing life, shouting into the wind. So you're on ranch roads all the way to the AZT cash box where that eye is right there. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to get on the Arizona Trail at this point, but the Arizona Trail crosses right there. So let me make a couple comments about the AZT cash box. It's hidden in some juniper bushes. That cache box is a life supply for thru hikers and bike packers who are doing the Arizona Trail. There's likely food and water in that box. You should avoid taking anything out of that box, and you certainly should not take anything out of that box that's labeled with somebody else's name. It's possible there's water jugs in there that are labeled for public or labeled for use after a certain date, but otherwise do not take anything out of that box, and I would just assume you're not taking anything out of that box.
Yeah, don't do it.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so then we're on still cruising on dirt road all the way until we hang a left and head north there. That turn is pretty easy to miss because you're on a really, really good road there at mile 261, and then you got to bang a left. It's not super obvious that there's a road there because it's kind of all blown out. It kind of just looks like a pull out for camping. In fact, there might be people camping there. There's sometimes like RVs right there. Mm-hmm. And then we climb up, kind of its road quality deteriorates and sort of turns into double track. This is part of the Craters and Cinder Cones route going in the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. But we will go by a couple cattle tanks. Again, don't assume there's water. That time of year, it's a high likelihood that there's water where those two spots are. One of them is better than the other. I can't remember which is which. One of them is sort of fed by a pump.
Yeah, I'll probably double check these as we get closer. I think, let's see if this loads up here. Sorry, guys. Yeah, one of them.
Yeah, I think it's that one.
Yeah, that might be the tank right there. I've definitely hit these before and seen really good water on these.
Yeah, and there's a couple more that we didn't mark. I tried to hit the ones that were more reliable.
Yeah, there was one. Whoops, there's one down there. But I think this whole area, this whole road, there's like pull-offs, great camping. There's like a tank sort of deal right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would like to check. I'm definitely going to try and check those because this section is, I mean, this is a big, let's see, let's zoom out so we can see the entire carry. So it would be basically 218 to like, I don't, and that's if there's water there, 262, which some of it's pretty fast rolling, but the first part of that's kind of slow rolling. So that's just going to be kind of a, make sure you don't under carry in that section. That's all I'd suggest.
And even though on paper that section's fast, I bet if we like lined up everybody's sort of relative times in various sections, I bet you that stretch is going to have one of the widest sort of ranges and how quickly people did it. Mm-hmm. Good conditions, no headwind, somebody feeling fresh, they're going to rip that off in a few hours. But that could also take a full day for some other people if they got a headwind and they're suffering.
Yeah. Okay. Also good, really good camping back in this area too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay.
I know we've got a few people who are planning on coming doing the event who've already expressed some fears of kitty cats.
Oh, little kitty cats.
They're everywhere en route. I personally have ridden that section multiple times. I always get a little bit of the heebie-jeebies in that section. I think it's because there's water there, there's cattle nearby, so there's some guaranteed food. So I don't know. Let's see if you get the heebie-jeebies with the kitty cats in that section too.
Okay.
Somebody I know had seen one at the top of that climb. I can't remember who it was.
It's kind of a gauntlet. We'll call it the gauntlet.
Kitty alley. I've never personally seen one there.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Can you put the terrain because we're going to cross Highway 180. So they're at mile 265.
Sorry. Yep.
We're going to cross Highway 180. You're going to cross the pavement there. There's a barbed wire gate on both sides that you're going to have to open and close. My recollection is that the one on the west side of the road is kind of a pain in the ass. If it happens to be open, then you don't have to worry about closing it. But typically those gates are those annoying sort of barbed wire gates. You gotta
when your hands don't work.
Yeah, when you gotta wrestle with them.
Yeah, and you're like, your arm and Yep. Got it. 10-4.
Yep. Okay. So we're gonna cruise by Slate Mountain there. Optionally, there is a trail that you're allowed to ride all the way to the top. In one of the early drafts of this route, I was going to have us go all the way up to that too, but it's such a short out and back. It wasn't really worth it, but that's cool. Oftentimes people will put stickers on the trail sign there saying it's no bikes, but it is bike legal to ride your bike all the way to the top of Slate Mountain.
Okay. Good to know.
Once you start heading south again, that's fast dirt road, and then it's a hard right. What mile is that at right there?
271.
271. Zoom in on where that water is. This is hard to find. I've been there before. There's a concrete tank. If you look to the right side of the road there's that blue roof.
Yeah.
There sometimes there's water there too. I haven't quite figured out how to reach into that thing.
Oh yeah, it's like a giant tank with a sloped roof that catches all the rain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's always smelled a little funny to me.
you can there's a concrete box you can step on.
Yeah.
That you can access it.
So on the other side of the road where that water is, that's really actually nice water. Where the water is, it's a little bit hard to find. It's a little off route. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can zoom in on there. Where that
this tank right here?
No, there's a concrete box.
Yeah, it's like back further.
No,
isn't
it's where I put. Well, at least I hope so.
Oh, I see.
Almost certain. If you turn the heat map on, you'll see that there's, right to that water spigot. It's not a spigot. I shouldn't have said that.
Right here, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the concrete boxes in that general area.
Yeah. I must have gone up further. I think I went up behind the tank one time, and there's another couple concrete boxes. Okay. So, but choose your own adventure. At least one of us might be correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it is hard to find.
Okay. Good to know. All right.
This is worth mentioning. From roughly where that water is, for the next couple miles, I always call this the spooky woods section. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why, but for some reason that next few miles as you're climbing up, it's a beautiful dirt road. It just is really eerie to me. Mm-hmm. it's not the same mountain lion heebie-jeebies, but I always feel like it's like I'm like Ichabod Crane in that section. I couldn't tell you why. Something about the way the light hits the trees or something like that, but that's a spooky section for me.
I love it. Well, it burned a few years back and kind of, lends itself to that kind of ashy, dead wood. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's just weird.
Yeah. Cool.
You hit a high point, I think around mile 274, 275. I think that's where you're at a local high point right there. Yeah. On the other side of that pass, I have the exact opposite feeling. I feel like it's just a wonderful, good energy area. So yeah, from where your cursor is there to about mile 274, it's just everything that we do for the whole rest of the race is just, everything's beautiful. Yeah, that Tip Top tank is labeled a Tip Top tank. There's a fence around it. Low probability it's going to be good water. If there is water there, it's just probably choked with mud. So I would say only count on that Tip Top tank if you're really in a pinch.
Okay.
Yep, you're bombing downhill at this point. Pretty good dirt. Hang a left on, I believe we're on Government Prairie Road at that point. And the views through here are just some of the best around, I think. Super fast, beautiful area. Right around where the road turns east there, just before mile 285. Yeah, zoom in right there. Yeah, it looks like Fire Road 76. There is a sign to Spring Valley Cabin, which is slightly off route. There's some bunkhouses there. There's a water spigot outside one of the bunkhouses, which we're allowed to use if it's on. Those are cabins you can rent. I haven't quite figured out how you can figure out when the water is on and when it's not. But that is a place you potentially could get fresh water. It's not that far off route. It's easy riding, and it's pretty obvious when you see the bunkhouses there.
Okay.
I believe the water spigot is at the furthest south bunkhouse. It's pretty easy to find. It's outside, but no guarantee that water spigot's going to be turned on.
Okay. And you're not too far from kind of that would be emergency maybe if you need it.
Yeah.
You're coming into kind of the next fair resupply bit. Limited hours, I guess, but
yeah. Right.
Because you're coming down into parks.
That's true. I mean, if you're there in the middle of the night, you're not going to be able to get water in parks.
Right.
So if that water spigot's on, it's maybe if you're running low on water or worried about getting water later, it's a worthy detour to go check it out.
Right. Okay. Cool. And then you bomb down into parks. Limited hours on everything in parks.
Yep. Do your research.
Yeah. There's a general store, which I got the biggest, least expensive burrito I've ever had.
Yeah. I love stopping there and getting food.
Dude, the burrito was next level. Anyway.
Yep.
So that's limited hours, but it's a pretty cool spot. It's an old Route 66 spot.
Yep. And there's, tables outside, trash can. So yeah, even if you get there during the middle of the night, I've sometimes just pulled up at the picnic table to sort of sort all my shit out and eat the food that I have. Even if they're not open, there's a nice table outside and a garbage can outside.
Cool. Okay. Also a limited hours Texaco gas station.
Yep. Also another really good resupply, and they often have fresh sandwiches, that sort of thing. And if you need to mail a package, it's the local post office.
Good spot to do it. Right on. Okay. Carry us through the rest of this.
Yep. So you're cruising through Brannigan Park. It's like old Route 66, this dirt road there, kind of a kick in the pants climb around 296. And yeah, you go through Brannigan Park, and just south of mile 298 there, you're turning onto the Belmont Gas Pipeline Road. It's a short paved climb, and the only reason it exists is there's a gas compressor for the gas pipeline at the top of that. So this is the section I mentioned a long time ago where, it doesn't seem like there's a way through, because typically that's just an out and back to a dead end. But you climb up to the gas compressor on pretty cool pavement, and then right around 299 there, you can see the gas compressor at 299 if you zoom in on the right there.
This right here?
Yep, that's the compressor station. There's a gate there. You can't go back there.
Yeah.
The Transwestern Road. So that this section around 299, you should just follow what I routed. It doesn't really match the maps. But this is going to connect us up to 171C.
Yep.
So for that little next mile, just follow it. Yep.
Follow it up. Okay.
Yep. And that section bridging those two roads there. Yep.
Right.
Follow the route.
Okay.
And then you're going to bang a left. And this is a section I've had in a previous iteration of Pinyons and Pines. This is a minimally traveled road. I wouldn't say it's the best riding quality road, but the views through here when you pass by Wild Bill Hill and go through what this is called, you're on sort of on the eastern edge of Government Prairie. You're on part of the old Beale Wagon Trail.
Okay.
There's no one around. You're going to just feel like you're in another country. And then it's just cool. And then you're going to pop back out on the 171 proper there and hang a left. And this is a very well-traveled road with cars and Jeeps. It's fast, but just, some of the traffic is driving way too fast. So as Dylan has said in the past, drive defensively there around mile 305.
Drive your bike defensively. They're all coming in for the Lava River Cave there.
Yep, or hunting or camping or whatever it is. Yeah, so for mile like 305 to 310, just a heads up.
Okay.
Fast riding.
All right.
310 to 312, we're on Route 180 for 2 miles of pavement. Bad shoulder, minimal shoulder. Heads up, folks. Watch out on this section. Please get through there safely. You can get it over with quickly, but it's maybe one of the more dangerous sections of the road, and we're trying to get you off there as quick as possible. So just a heads up on 310 to 312.
But don't forget your blinky light.
Yep, if you got a blinky light, put it on there.
For a few of these little bits. Okay.
Then you're going to turn on to Hart Prairie Road. Nope, it's 418 at that point. I apologize. Almost got myself. So that's road 418. Good dirt road. You're going to pass a few little private property signs, another beautiful section. And then at mile 315, you're going to turn on to the Arizona Trail. And in my mind, this is the best section of the Arizona Trail that in the whole state. Do you agree?
Yeah. Coming up the backside for sure.
Yeah. So
Both
you're gonna climb here
good.
for a while, but you're gonna be in these aspens, and oh man, you're gonna be getting close, and it's not easy, but just absolutely beautiful section of single track. And now you're on the other side of the San Francisco Peaks. Mount Humphreys is gonna be off to your left. That's the highest point in Arizona, just under 13,000 feet. You're on single track for a really long time. You want to highlight that possible water at...
Alpha Fia.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always good. That seems to be kind of a hot spot for through hikers. It's a little bit off route, and you're pretty close to the finish. I mean, you're 322 miles in at this point, so unless you're really... I would grab it if I really, really needed it, but you're so close to the end at this point. So it's there if you need it. You have to filter it. It's probably going to be good.
Yeah, I want to point out that the way that you access it is not directly across.
Let's see if I can get the...
Yeah, it should be a heat map. You're going to be at a place called Aspen Corner. There's going to be a road. Interesting.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I guess it is straight across from here. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's kind of a four-way. A lot of people come hike down from here.
Yep, and there's a sign there for the Arizona Trail, and you can kind of see it. You're sort of in the edge of the trees, and then you look off to your right, looking west, and you can kind of see that the tank is down there, and it's always got water.
Yeah.
Nice wildlife views.
Okay, buckle up. Don't crash. This is where things get a little technical on this bit. You're fatigued at the end, so everybody be careful.
Yeah, a lot of people love this section. From Aspen Corner down to where you cross Snowball Road, I'm always psyched when it's over with because I don't really like descending anyway, and it's pretty rowdy. It's not technically challenging, but you're just like bouncing all over the place. So yeah, you're going to be psyched. You don't have a gravel bike at this point.
Oh, I was going to bring my gravel bike. I thought Pinyons and Pines was a gravel bike route.
Yeah. You don't want a gravel bike right here. You could survive. You don't want a gravel bike.
Yeah. You want that full suspension gravel bike.
Amen.
Okay. All right. So we crossed the road. Let's see.
Yeah.
We're getting close.
Yeah, where do we cross?
Oh, man.
Be around 326, 327 probably is where we cross the road.
I'm lost. I have
Zoom in, it'll pop out for us.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, you're going to cross just before 327, Snowball Road.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so that's paved road up to the ski area. You're going to just go straight across it, stay on the Arizona Trail. And you're on the Arizona Trail almost to the end here.
Yeah, this is called squirrel country right here officially.
Yeah, don't hit any squirrels.
Yeah.
This is pretty fast. It gets smoother the further east you go.
Yep.
That section where Dylan's cursor is just one of my favorite sections of riding in town. What a great way to end. Yep. Then you're going to cross, go back up. You're going to cross Schultz Pass Road, staying on the Arizona Trail. And you're going to turn right onto Schultz Creek Trail. This is premier Flagstaff single track. Definitely one of the more popular trails in town. We start on a Thursday morning. A lot of people are going to be finishing on the weekend, depending on what time of day it is. This trail can be extremely crowded in both directions. So just know that you might not be able to bomb down this thing as fast as you want, depending on what time of day it is, and yield to all the uphill traffic, please.
Bring your bell if you have one. Bring your bell.
Yeah, and some of this has been rerouted since the flooding damage from the previous fire. And for the most part, it's fast, super fun way to end a long bikepacking adventure. So great.
Cool. So then you pop back down. You have a little deja vu.
Yep.
From when you started the route. And it looks like
wave at the bow house on the way by.
Yeah, the bows.
Yep.
And then we take the 180 back down and we bomb down the 180.
Yep. There is a good shoulder on that entire thing. There's also a paved bike path on the left north side of the road if you'd prefer to do that. Mm-hmm. It ends eventually in a weird spot, so you're gonna have to then get off that bike path and onto the other side of the road. I actually just find it safer to just stay on the shoulder instead of getting on the bike path myself. But people can ride whatever they think is safest there. Plenty of good shoulder. It's slightly downhill. It's a great way to just coast for the last few miles into the finish.
Cool.
All the way to Sosta.
All the way to Sosta to get that pasta.
Boom.
Okay.
Pat yourself on the back. You made it.
And don't forget to wait for 10 minutes until your tracker bounces.
That's right. Yeah, if you're using a tracker, leave it on for a few minutes so that you can get the finish at the Sosta there and enjoy the food, the pastries, and the coffee.
All right. Excellent. Cool.
And I'm now that I've gone through this whole thing, I'm having serious FOMO, even though it's not happening yet. I'm definitely not going to be able to be riding my bike, definitely not a mountain bike at that time.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty jealous. I would be out there with everybody if I was able to, but it's going to be a few months before I can do this sort of thing.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm sure it'll come back around.
I'll be there eventually.
Yeah, we'll just switch directions for the next time you're ready. So
sounds great.
Cool. All right. Well, let's see. Let's get it wrapped up. So anybody who has any questions or anything like that, you can contact us via email through the website, or you can put a comment in the down on this video, on the release on this video, and we'll answer as best we can. Yeah, I guess the one thing real quick, we did kind of talk about it, but what type of bike to ride, that would be the one little thing to wrap up, I would say. Yeah, you can ride any bike. People they've underbiked it, they've overbiked it.
I'm looking at you, Ezra.
Yeah, Ezra. Yeah. I'm going to ride, I would ride a hardtail on this if I still had it. I'm going to ride a short travel cross country bike just because that's the only mountain bike that I have now. But I'm tossing up aero bars for a few of these sections, but there's going to be some technical, like seriously technical stuff. But then there's also going to be some sections that you just want to get down low and get aero and just pedal. So that's what makes, I think, every year so challenging for Pinyons and Pines is the diversity of the trail system. Mm-hmm. It just makes it a bike problem. Like, it's so hard to decide which bike is the best bike.
Yeah, I mean, there's huge stretch of this where a gravel bike or a drop bar bike with aero bars would be so fast. Mm-hmm. Then you got to ride the single track.
Yeah,
and then vice versa. It's kind of a nice dilemma, and I'm sure we're going to have all the bikes show up, which is great. I'm kind of hoping this is a sort of a arm twisting. I'm hoping some people from Rodeo Labs come join us with their Flanimal or their whatever bike they got. I'm sure they're going to have drop bars on there. And certainly the huge stretch of this where that is going to be the ideal machine. And then other sections where they're going to be under biking. But certainly don't bring skinny tires. Front suspension is probably best. But it can be done on any bike. But definitely don't show up thinking this is a gravel race. It ain't.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Dana, let's wrap it up. So
thanks, Dylan.
Yeah, I hope it was helpful for everyone. And just if you have any questions, let us know. And yeah, can't wait to see you all out there at the start.